Loyalty. It's a word we often associate with friends, family, and, sometimes, the people we hold closest to our hearts. But what about the loyalty of our pets? What about the devotion of a dog who would stop at nothing to be with the ones he loves? Today, we bring you the extraordinary story of Max, a dog who defied all odds. Separated from his family due to circumstances beyond his control, Max embarked on a journey that would test his strength, determination, and love. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a testament to the unbreakable bond between a dog and his family. Imagine walking 50 miles, through forests, across highways in harsh weather, all without a map, food, or even a clear path. Now imagine doing it, because your heart told you that's where you needed to be. This is the journey Max undertook, fueled by nothing more than the longing to reunite with the people who were his entire world. So, settle in, because this heartwarming tale of loyalty, courage, and perseverance will remind us all of what it truly means to love unconditionally. This is the story of the dog who walked 50 miles to reunite with his family. To truly understand Max's incredible journey, we need to start at the beginning, with his family. The Johnsons were a close-knit family of 4. Sarah and Michael, a hard-working couple, and their 2 children, Emily, age 10, and Jake, age 7. Their days were filled with laughter, weekend outings, and a shared love for their beloved dog, Max. Max wasn't just a pet. He was a member of the family, a golden retriever with warm, expressive eyes and a playful spirit. Max had been with the Johnsons since he was a puppy. Over the years, he had become the kids' playmate, Michael's jogging partner, and Sarah's comforting companion during quiet evenings. He was the glue that brought the family even closer together. Max's bond with the children was particularly special. Emily would often curl up beside him to read her favorite books, while Jake loved playing fetch with Max in the backyard. No matter what kind of day the family was having, Max always seemed to know how to make it better, whether it was a nuzzle, a wagging tail, or simply sitting quietly by their side. But life was about to change for the Johnsons. Michael had been offered a new job in a different city, an exciting opportunity, but one that meant leaving their familiar neighborhood behind. The family was thrilled about the new chapter ahead, but faced a logistical challenge. Their new home wasn't ready for move-in, and during the transition they decided Max would temporarily stay with Sarah's sister, who lived in a rural area 50 miles away. It was a difficult decision. Emily and Jake were heartbroken at the thought of leaving Max, even if only for a short while. On the day they dropped him off, Emily hugged Max tightly, her eyes brimming with tears. "We'll be back soon, I promise," she whispered into his soft fur. Max licked her cheek, his tail wagging, but there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. Jake patted Max's head and said, "Be good, buddy. We'll come back for you." Sarah and Michael reassured the kids and themselves that Max would be fine. After all, Sarah's sister loved animals and had a big yard for Max to roam. But what no one realized was just how deeply Max's heart was tied to his family. To Max, being separated from them was unthinkable, and soon he would decide to take matters into his own paws. At first, life with Sarah's sister seemed manageable for Max. She was kind, her home was comfortable, and the yard gave him plenty of room to run and play. But something was missing: his family. The familiar sounds of Emily laughing, Jake's shouts of excitement, and Sarah and Michael's soothing voices were gone. Every creak of the door or distant sound of a car made Max's ears perk up, his tail wagging in hope. But it was never them. Days turned into weeks, and Max's longing for his family only grew. He spent hours sitting by the window, staring out at the road as if willing them to appear. At night, he would curl up in a corner, restless and uneasy, his dreams filled with images of Emily's hugs and Jake's playful games. Sarah's sister noticed his melancholy and did her best to comfort him, but Max's heart was set on reuniting with the Johnsons. Meanwhile, the Johnson family missed Max just as much. Emily kept his favorite blanket by her bed, refusing to sleep without it. Jake would often ask, "When can we go get Max? I miss him." Sarah and Michael, overwhelmed with the chaos of moving and setting up their new home, reassured the kids that they'd fetch Max as soon as everything was settled. But Max didn't understand their plans. All he knew was that his family was gone, and he wasn't where he belonged. The separation weighed heavily on him, and one day his yearning became too much to bear. That morning, Sarah's sister had left for work, assuming Max would stay in the yard like he always did. But this time, Max had other plans. Driven by an instinctive pull he couldn't ignore, Max slipped through a loose section of the fence and set off down the road. He didn't know the exact direction to take or how far he would have to go, but he didn't hesitate. Every fiber of his being was focused on one goal: finding his family. Little did anyone know that this ordinary golden retriever was about to embark on an extraordinary journey, one that would push him to his limits and showcase the incredible strength of his love and loyalty. The day Max escaped was like any other, except it wasn't. As Sarah's sister left for work, she patted Max's head and said, "Be good, boy. I'll see you tonight." But Max, with his heart set on reuniting with his family, had already made up his mind. He had noticed a loose plank in the fence the day before, and now, as the house grew quiet, he approached it with determination. With a little push and a wiggle, Max slipped through the gap and found himself free. He stood on the edge of the yard, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. The road stretched before him, unfamiliar yet inviting. Max paused only for a moment before trotting forward, his tail low but steady. The journey had begun. Max didn't know exactly where his family was, but he trusted his instincts. His sharp nose picked up faint traces of their scent, on the wind, in the air, and perhaps in his memory. He followed a path that only he could sense, his paws moving steadily toward the unknown. The first few miles were uneventful. Max passed through quiet neighborhoods and open fields, his golden coat gleaming under the sun. Occasionally, a car would pass, and he would step to the side of the road, watching carefully. He didn't know where these strange machines were going, but he knew they weren't taking him to his family. As the day wore on, the journey became more challenging. The sun blazed overhead, and Max's tongue lolled out as he panted from the heat. He stopped at a small stream to drink, his body grateful for the cool water. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, but he pressed on, his determination outweighing his discomfort. At one point, Max encountered a fork in the road. He paused, sniffing the air and surveying his surroundings. The left path led toward a dense forest, while the right led to a bustling highway. The forest seemed quieter and safer, so Max turned left. The decision would lead him into a new set of challenges, but Max didn't hesitate. His love for his family was guiding him, and that was all he needed. As night began to fall, Max found a sheltered spot beneath a cluster of trees. He curled up, his body exhausted, but his mind focused. The journey had only just begun, but Max's heart was unwavering. He had no map, no plan, and no way of knowing how far he had to go. But none of that mattered. Max was driven by something far more powerful: the unbreakable bond with his family. Little did Max know that the journey ahead would test him in ways he couldn't imagine. But for now, as he drifted into a light sleep, he dreamed of Emily's hugs, Jake's laughter, and the warmth of home. As Max ventured further from the safety of the yard, his journey became a test of survival and determination. The road ahead was filled with challenges that would push him to his limits, but Max pressed on, guided by an unwavering sense of purpose. The first major obstacle came as Max reached the edge of a forest. The dense trees stretched endlessly before him, their shadows growing longer as the sun dipped lower in the sky. The forest was alive with unfamiliar sounds: the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the occasional snap of a branch. Max hesitated for a moment, his ears swiveling at every sound, but he took a deep breath and stepped forward. The forest proved to be more treacherous than Max had anticipated. The ground was uneven, littered with roots and fallen branches that caught at his paws. At one point, Max's foot got stuck between two roots, and he whimpered in pain as he pulled himself free. Hunger gnawed at him as the hours passed. He scavenged what he could: berries from a low-hanging bush and a half-eaten sandwich discarded near a picnic area. It wasn't much, but it gave him the energy to keep going. Then came the night. The forest, which had seemed merely daunting during the day, turned into a maze of darkness and eerie sounds. The hoots of owls and distant howls of coyotes made Max's fur bristle, but he stayed alert, his sharp senses guiding him through the darkness. At one point, he encountered a raccoon that hissed and bared its teeth. Max backed away, his instincts telling him to avoid a fight. As Max emerged from the forest the next morning, battered but undeterred, he faced a new challenge: a busy highway. Cars sped by in both directions, their tires hissing against the asphalt. The noise was overwhelming, and Max crouched low, his body tense as he assessed the situation. He knew he had to cross, but the endless stream of vehicles made it dangerous. Max waited patiently, his eyes fixed on the road. Finally, a gap appeared, a brief lull in the traffic. Summoning his courage, Max darted across the highway, his paws pounding against the pavement. A car honked loudly as it swerved to avoid him, and Max's heart raced, but he made it to the other side unscathed. The next few days brought more challenges. The weather turned against him, with heavy rain soaking his fur and turning the dirt roads into slippery mud. Max trudged forward, his body shivering from the cold. He sought shelter beneath a bridge, curling up to wait out the storm. Even in his exhaustion, his thoughts were filled with his family. The memory of Emily's laughter and Jake's playful shouts fueled his resolve. Max also encountered people along the way, some kind, others indifferent. A young woman spotted him on the roadside and offered him a piece of bread, which he gratefully accepted before continuing his journey. Another person tried to approach him with a leash, perhaps thinking he was a stray. Max, however, backed away, his instincts telling him to avoid capture. He wasn't lost. He had a destination, and nothing would stop him from reaching it. As the miles stretched on, Max's golden coat grew dirty, and his paws became sore and cracked. But his spirit remained unbroken. Every step brought him closer to his family, and that thought alone gave him the strength to keep going. Through forests, highways, rainstorms, and exhaustion, Max never wavered. By the time Max reached the outskirts of the Johnsons' new neighborhood, he was a shadow of the playful, carefree dog he had once been. But his eyes still sparkled with determination. He was almost home. After days of navigating harsh terrain, enduring hunger, and overcoming countless obstacles, Max finally reached the edge of the neighborhood where his family had moved. The streets were unfamiliar, but Max trusted his instincts, his nose picking up faint scents of home. Exhaustion weighed heavily on him, but the thought of seeing his family filled him with renewed energy. As Max turned the corner onto a quiet residential street, something changed. His nose twitched as he caught a scent that made his tail wag weakly. It was familiar, comforting, and unmistakable. It was the scent of the Johnsons. He quickened his pace, his paws aching with every step, but his heart pounding with anticipation. Meanwhile, inside their new home, Emily was sitting by the window with Max's blanket in her lap. She missed him terribly, and often stared out, wondering when her family would bring him back. Suddenly, she noticed a figure in the distance, a dog, thin and ragged, limping down the street. At first, she thought it was a stray, but then she gasped, "Mom! Dad! It's Max!" she shouted, bolting from the couch and rushing to the door. Sarah and Michael, startled by Emily's excitement, followed her outside with Jake close behind. As they stepped onto the front lawn, they saw him too. It was Max, his golden coat dirty and his frame much thinner than they remembered, but it was undoubtedly him. Max saw them too, and the moment his eyes met Emily's, he broke into a weak but joyful run, his tail wagging furiously despite his exhaustion. "Max!" Emily cried, tears streaming down her face as she ran to meet him. Jake followed, his arms outstretched. Max reached them and collapsed into their embrace, licking their faces as they sobbed and hugged him tightly. Sarah and Michael joined in, their own tears falling as they knelt beside their children and their brave, loyal dog. It was a scene of pure, unfiltered emotion. The Johnsons couldn't believe what they were seeing. Max had found his way home, against all odds, through countless miles of unknown terrain. He had returned to the family he loved so deeply. His body was worn, but his spirit was as strong as ever. Neighbors began to gather, curious about the commotion. When Sarah explained what had happened, the crowd was awestruck. People brought water and food for Max, offering kind words and pats on his head. Max, though exhausted, basked in the love and attention. But it was clear his focus was on his family. He leaned into Emily, his eyes closing as she cradled his head and whispered, "You're home now, Max. You're safe." The Johnsons carried Max inside and placed him on a soft blanket. Michael called a veterinarian who arrived soon after to examine Max. Despite his thin frame and sore paws, the vet declared him healthy and said with rest and care Max would recover fully. The family spent the evening showering him with love, vowing never to let him out of their sight again. That night, as Max lay curled up between Emily and Jake, he let out a contented sigh. His journey was over. He was home. Max's incredible journey didn't just reunite him with his family, it also inspired everyone who heard about it. News of the loyal dog who walked 50 miles to find his family quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. And soon, the story reached the local media. A journalist came to the Johnsons' home to interview the family. Emily and Jake eagerly recounted how Max had been their best friend and how devastated they'd been when they had to leave him temporarily. Sarah and Michael described their shock and joy at seeing Max appear on their street, thin and tired but full of love. The story struck a chord with everyone who heard it, and soon Max became a local hero. The journalist shared Max's story online, where it quickly went viral. People from all over the world were moved by Max's determination and loyalty. Social media was flooded with comments and messages of support for the brave dog and his family. Many people shared similar stories of their pet's unwavering devotion, while others simply expressed their admiration for Max's incredible journey. Soon, Max's tale reached the attention of animal organizations and advocates. A local animal shelter invited the Johnsons to speak about Max's journey during an event to promote pet adoption. The family happily agreed, bringing Max along as the guest of honor. Though still recovering, Max wagged his tail as he was introduced to the crowd, receiving a standing ovation from the audience. The story also sparked conversations about the unique bond between humans and their pets. Veterinarians and animal behavior experts explained how dogs like Max possess an extraordinary sense of direction and an innate loyalty that drives them to extraordinary lengths to stay close to their loved ones. Max became a shining example of just how powerful that bond can be. As time passed, Max fully recovered. His coat regained its golden sheen and his energy returned in full force. The Johnsons made sure to give him all the love, care, and attention he deserved. Emily and Jake spent hours playing with Max, while Sarah and Michael took him on long walks around their new neighborhood, where he had become something of a celebrity. Neighbors would stop to greet him, often commenting, "There goes Max, the miracle dog." The Johnsons never took Max's love for granted. They knew they had witnessed something truly special, a story that would stay with them forever. Max's journey was a testament to the unbreakable bond between a dog and his family, a story that reminded the world of the extraordinary capacity for love that our animal companions possess. In the end, Max didn't just find his way home. He reminded everyone who heard his story of the power of loyalty, love, and determination. And for the Johnsons, every day with Max was a gift, a reminder of the lengths he had gone to for the family he loved. Max's story is one that will live on in the hearts of those who heard it. It's a story of courage, perseverance, and the kind of love that knows no bounds. So, the next time you look into the eyes of your furry friend, remember Max, the dog who walked 50 miles for the people he loved most. Because sometimes the greatest journeys are the ones taken with the heart.